This is Pickles Picks with Pickles the Unicorn and Necromedes the Thrice-Reborn. We're covering Dune. This is episode 2. The timestamp on Audible is 28 minutes and 50 seconds through 49 minutes and 45 seconds. In this episode, we get away from everybody that was in the first episode. We are not anywhere near Paul or his family or their friends. What we are next to is Baron Harkonnen, who is a very, very bad guy. He's joined by Piter, who is his mentat, who is kind of like an assassin human computer, and his nephew, Feyd-Rautha, who he seems to be creeping on really hard. Baron Harkonnen hates Paul's father in the first chapter, and what he's done is he's gotten the Emperor to approve a planet switch. Now, it looks like the Atreides are getting the better end of the deal because they're going to be getting the planet Arrakis, which is where spice is harvested? Made?
Yes, it is both made and harvested.
Made and harvested. And spice is used for everything from addiction to space travel. So, it looks like the Atreides are getting the better end of the deal, but there has been an assassin planted within their midst, and they are in a whole lot of danger that they do not know about. And take us away, Necromedes.
Well, this is, of course, a much better chapter because it focuses on the villains, and villains are much better than the good guys. There's parallels between the two people. There's Baron Harkonnen. The parallel is the Duke Atreides, Duke Leto. Then the boy Feyd-Rautha matches up with Paul Atreides, and lastly, the mentat Thufir Hawat is the good guy, and this evil, much more interesting character is this evil, demented Piter.
Yeah, he's creepy.
Now, this is much more interesting than the first chapter, in my opinion.
He kind of reminds me of an evil Harlequin. I'm not entirely sure why. I'm not sure that's what they were going for.
He's described as small and effeminate. I'm not sure. Is that what you're going for?
I was thinking more lanky and caping.
No, he's definitely not that.
Well, he could be small and that.
Do you remember the movie? That
I actually don't remember the movie. I was 10 years old when the movie came out, and that was not something that my parents thought was age appropriate. So I didn't see the movie until I was in college, and I'm going to assume that because of the people that I was with at the time, I was probably under the influence.
Of what?
Probably tequila.
Oh, well.
So my memory's a little bit hazy.
Well, let me just say this.
Drunken unicorns aside.
Well. So, these evil guys, much more interesting. So, but he's dumping a whole lot of information on you.
He really is.
It's like overwhelming that there's no way you can possibly understand. So if you're completely lost, you're meant to be.
Listeners, I would also like to tell you that we had to go over this particular area of the text probably about 3 or 4 times, to be able to get all the information out of it, because the vocabulary is really throwing me off. I'm not going to lie here.
Well, that's what old style science fiction.
I know it's old style science fiction, but it's honestly like learning another language, and I understand that a lot of people do that easier than I do.
Well, it's a mystery that you throw them clues at, and then you finally figure it out, and it makes it much easier much more interesting on the reread when you finally understand what the hell's going on, and what the whole political situation in the Empire.
Yeah, that seems to be very confusing.
Yeah, there's no way you could understand it fully at this point, and I don't think you really expect it to.
Right.
Well, you think you know what's going to happen because you got these history of Paul Muad'Dib quotes at the beginning, so you know where everything's heading, and not too well for Baron Harkonnen.
Right. So that's actually really strange to be looking in the past and in the present at the same time. Do you think that Herbert was trying to kind of give us a hint at what will go about how... Okay, what I'm trying to say is, do you think that the way that the text is being written out now is going to be the way that Paul's brain works in the future when he's looking in the past and dealing with the present at the same time?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think that what we're probably reading is propaganda.
Okay.
That's the Princess Irulan stuff.
Okay.
Well, one thing I noticed is that this idea of predicting and controlling the future is a big theme of the Golden Age. 1966, when Herbert, this Dune, won the Hugo, it was also the same year that the Foundation trilogy won a special Hugo for the best all-time series, science fiction series. And that book was all about predicting the future. Some guy, Harry Seldon, was able to predict the future for thousands of years in the future and direct the future. And where that seemed rather, benign, this one is very much the opposite, where this Kwisatz Haderach is, well, you'll find out.
Okay.
So this is a theory, and this is the theme. And I think it's much more, if you consider it a mystery, learning all these things slowly and maybe coming back to reread with a fuller understanding. So how do you had to go back 4 or 5 times with the chapter?
I did. I was having a lot of problems with the new vocabulary. I think my big problem is that the first few times I listened to it, I did it specifically on Audible, and there were too many new words being thrown at me that sound like words that I already knew. And it helped me with my comprehension a lot more when I was listening to the Audible performance. Because I'm going to call it a performance because they've got voice actors doing this. It isn't necessarily just one narrator doing a bunch of different voices for people. It's really kind of in depth, and I was able to comprehend it a lot better when I was reading along the text.
Really? What's the understanding?
You know what? I'm not entirely sure why. It was just easier to keep people separately in my head. I could hear, like, the Audible performance cuts out. It edits the book a little bit. Because when you say he said, he whispered, at one point he says he belched, which is really funny because it doesn't come out very well in the recording at all.
I heard a belch in it.
I know, well, it almost sounds like the poor voice actor was really just kind of embarrassed to do it. So he didn't do it very well. But I realize that's all part of the Baron Harkonnen's thing because he's creepy. There's nothing about this guy that isn't creepy from the time he shows up.
The pedophilia is really
disturbing. That part's really just kind of strange because, like,
and it's amped up to 11 in the Dune movie.
Yeah, and it's kind of amped up together. I mean, at the end of the chapter when he's all like, "Oh, I'm hungry. We're gonna eat, and then we're gonna retire." And it's like, dude, really?
Oh boy.
And he's like, there gets a point when a person gets so large that certain things aren't as easy as a average size person can do. So you did listen to about the suspensors. Yes, I did listen about the suspensors, and it's put things in my mind that really shouldn't be there. I mean, we're going to be honest.
He's prancing around like he's 100 pounds, but he's actually like 420 or something.
I know, but it still makes me wonder if his equipment still works, and if it does, it just makes me think about things that I just really shouldn't think about.
I assume we can think that it does, because
I just have so many questions, and none of them need to be answered is kind of where I'm going with this one.
Well, that makes a good villain.
Yeah, he does make a really good villain. But it also brings in to the one thing. So, Paul is the good guy, and this Feyd-Rautha is supposed to be the dark to his light, right?
That's the way I see it. Well,
okay.
Well, Paul was super attentive. The other guy was like a goofball, just goofing off, not paying attention.
Yeah, well, I just kind of got the the idea that he was just snobbish and really bored and like, why am I here and everybody's wasting my time and I could have better things to do. And Paul is also kind of like, who the hell are you? And what are you doing here? And why are you wasting my mother's time? And who exactly do you think you are? And at the same time, each of these kids, I mean, Jessica almost got Paul killed. And Fade Baratha is being possibly molested by his uncle. It's like, where are these kids, like, fathers? I mean, both of these kids are being victimized.
Well, I wouldn't say
by the
Paul's
powers
being
that be. I think they're
victimized.
both being seriously manipulated.
Well, except for the poison to your neck thing up until that point.
Yeah, up until that point, Jessica was cool, but it was kind of like, dude, really? He's only 15. Like, this couldn't wait a couple years?
Yeah, that's kind of... Well, it's just such a bizarre thing. It's hard to, the whole concept of being human. It's just so disturbing.
Yeah, that whole difference between human and animals just because somebody can keep their hand inside of a box, like...
People have different pain tolerances.
Yeah, people have different pain tolerances, and also, like, just because you don't put a hand... I mean, like, that could also be an intelligence test. Let's just not be kidding. She could have actually been eating away his hand, and at the end of it, she could have been all like, well, a human would have taken their hand out of the box.
Yeah, it's a switcheroo. Well, I think this all goes in with the whole mind-enhancing drug thing of the 60s, where maybe with super control of your mind, you can control any part of your body.
Yeah, it does seem a little Timothy Leary.
Yeah. So how do you like the chapter?
I like the chapter a whole lot better once I got everything down. I think I'm going to read along with the performance in future chapters, just because I think it works better for me. If you have problems with Dune, I would suggest you do the same. One of my favorite book bloggers suggested reading that way because he said that you can speed up your performance, and when you read along, you can read a lot faster, and your comprehension is going to be a lot better because you're using two of your senses. Mm-hmm. I don't know if, there's any scientific value to that, but I know it worked for me.
If it works for you, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, so far, I'm thinking, you don't get any villain as villainous as the Baron Harkonnen.
I mean, he really is like chuckling in the dark.
Anywhere near as there's no villain in the Harry Potter ones that nearly as good as Baron Harkonnen. Guy with no nose and bald guy.
I don't know. Before Voldemort has a body in the books, he's a pretty scary dude.
Well.
He's a little less scary when he actually gets his body, I think.
I wouldn't want to have a 420 pound guy bearing down on me.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's your verdict on the chapter? Out of 10?
Out of 10? Oh, geez. Just because I had problems with the vocabulary, 7. But I know that's just me and that's not anybody else. That's just my personal view.
So how do you think the book's going to go, given what do you remember how it ends? Well, we know how it ends a little bit.
No, I don't, actually. I don't remember anything.
Oh, boy.
It has been that long.
What do you think of the plan? Is it going to work?
With the whole planet assassin thing, I don't know. Because I think the deal is that Jessica's really smart. I think she could probably sense that type of thing coming from a mile off. I mean, like, I really just think she's that good. Maybe I'm putting a little bit too much faith in her.
Well, is assassination going to work?
I think the assassination of Paul's father might work. I don't think anybody else. Well, maybe Jessica. I don't know. I really don't. I know that no matter what happens, Paul's not going to get killed.
So you're rooting for Paul at this point?
I'm rooting for kind of both of the boys at this point. Because let's just face it, the Harkonnen boy is just there and being manipulated. I mean, he could be a Draco character.
I'm sure he's evil. He's got to be doing crazy stuff all the time.
Probably, but that's only because you know how the book ends and I don't.
Well, I don't know either. I don't remember.
All I remember is that Sting played him in the movie and he was kind of spastic, so.
I will kill him. Okay, that's it.
Okay.
See you later. See you next chapter.
All right, guys. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.